Hello and welcome to this little special episode of the Yellowwallpod, or another segment. Either way, I'm joined by Ed from PSG Talk. Hey Ed, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing very fine myself. Obviously, there is a very big game coming out.
Just a little
Dortmund. Yeah, on Tuesday against the league leaders of Ligue 1. And I'm very excited to have someone capable to talk about this particular game. Ed, there is obviously a lot of history between the PSG coach and Borussia Dortmund. But before we talk about Thomas Tuchel and all that, I just want to know in general what the mood at the club is and how things are in Paris with Neymar and Mbappe, and do you have any star trouble right now?
Absolutely. Yeah, so PSG fans are a fickle bunch. We've been through a lot. The 6-1 to Barcelona, the loss last season to probably a Manchester United C squad. There were so many injuries. So we've definitely seen our lowest of lows in the Champions League. But this season, I think fans are optimistic. When the draw came out, I think a lot of fans were saying, okay, Dortmund, that'll be exciting. You guys have a great atmosphere there. We still fancy ourselves to go through. We think that PSG has the better team on paper. But again, that on paper really doesn't mean a whole lot. And given our history, we're cautiously optimistic heading into this game. You asked about Neymar and any star drama that is going on. So he today, and we're recording this before the match against Amiens on Saturday, which Neymar will miss. It's going to be his fourth game that he's missed. He picked up, what I looked up on WebMD, which is basically his injury is some kind of rib cartilage. He's got some kind of injury to his ribs, that he suffered on February 1st against Montpellier. And the manager, Tuchel, has not been very forthcoming on what the real issue is going on there. He keeps kind of hiding behind the medical staff and saying, we're going to be cautious with him. I'm going with what my medical team tells me. But then we see Neymar training, photos of him, looks perfectly healthy. His birthday was the day after. His birthday party was the day after his injury. Looked fine there. He recently traveled to Germany for a fashion show. He was photographed with models, all that. So he looks fine from all the photos. But I think what's going on is PSG does not want him injured in a meaningless game against Amiens or Dijon or somebody like that with the game against Dortmund coming up. We know that the past 2 seasons he's missed out on the knockout phase due to injury. So I think that they are doing everything possible to make sure that he is on the pitch Tuesday night in Dortmund. So I think a lot of the papers are kind of creating speculation and rumor.
I was just going to say, PSG left just enough space for all the conspiracy theories to float around.
Exactly. They're like, I think I saw on one of the Spanish publications, they were like, oh, the Neymar went to Germany and behind the scenes, Leonardo and the executives are mad. But Tuchel came out and said, yeah, we've known about this for 4 to 6 weeks. And PSG actually has a relationship with the sponsor that Neymar was visiting in Germany. So they probably told him, yeah, go ahead. Definitely go. So I don't think there's any drama behind the scenes. Neymar is playing outstanding this season. I think he's going to be perfectly fine on Tuesday. They are just basically wrapping him in a bubble wrap and making sure that he's not injured before Tuesday.
All right. Yeah, that's obviously good to know. So Dortmund will be fully prepared. That being said, preparedness, I think, is a big thing for this game for both teams. You said that PSG usually play in a 4-2-2-2 system with, I assume, Mbappe and Icardi up front, and then sort of Di Maria and Neymar tucked in behind, and then you have a midfield of Verratti and Gueye. The big question is, PSG are a big star ensemble. They are a team that's backed by a big sponsor, and that usually means that these sort of teams, and I would say the only big star ensemble that really pulled it together in my recent memory is Real Madrid, right? When on this epic Champions League run where really you had a cohesive unit. But usually that's the biggest problem, that you do not have the cohesion, that the 4 or 5 attacking players do whatever they want. and try to play glitzy football, and then everyone else needs to basically clean up behind them. And that offers a lot of space and makes them prone to then fall on the big stage, which PSG, I would say, has done before.
Yes, I would say so.
So I assume that's your concern, and but I still would like you to talk a little bit about this, how big the concern really is, and if this has improved for PSG, or are there any signs that the defense will have a lot of trouble because of a lack of cohesion, or has Tuchel done his most to paper over the cracks?
Absolutely. So I'll say I think this is the strongest PSG side we've ever seen, at least in the QSI era. If you look at 2017, when they did bring in Neymar and Mbappe, that's really the big expenditure. But since then, they've been really good about finding, and mostly because of financial fair play, but they've found players who can contribute who didn't cost a whole lot. So like Idrissa Gueye, for example, or Ander Herrera, who was signed on a free. They just, there's another 17-year-old Tanguy Kouassi who will likely be on the bench. He came up through the ranks. So they've brought up players, they found free transfers, and they've surrounded Neymar and Mbappe with a team of guys who like to work hard. I think Idrissa Gueye had the most tackles, or maybe second most behind Kanté in the Premier League. So they've just surrounded them with really talented guys who like to work and feed the two stars up front. On defense, we are a little weak. A lot is just due to injury. Marquinhos is our key player. Everyone's going to talk about Neymar and Mbappe, but when it comes to defense, it's all about Marquinhos. And he is a natural center back. But what Tuchel has done is moved him up the pitch a little bit into a defensive midfielder role. And so he may be there with Verratti, and maybe Idrissa Gueye starts on the bench. That's a possibility. Or Marquinhos might play in the center back role. So, but he's been out for a few weeks now with a hamstring injury, and he's only going to be coming back today against Amiens. So that's the player that I'm going to be watching. If you're a Dortmund fan listening to this, keep an eye on Marquinhos today, or if you're listening to this late, watch a replay or just check in on psgtalk.com. We'll probably have analysis of Marquinhos and how he did. But he is absolutely critical. He's just important to PSG on defense as Neymar and Mbappe are on offense. So,
well, that's very good to know. How the biggest weak points in a lot of top teams these days are actually the fullbacks. Mm-hmm. You have Kurzawa and Meunier. How are they doing right now?
Yeah, so Kurzawa, we didn't think he was actually going to be at the club. I mean, he was rumored to be going to Arsenal and then Juventus, and then that whole thing fell through. Juan Bernat, I believe, is going to be back. He's another player. He's typically the starting left back. He's familiar with the Bundesliga. I believe he was at Bayern Munich before.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's been phenomenal. He came in and kind of took over that starting left back spot from Kurzawa.
But he was sort of chased out of Bayern Munich, and the club president sort of said that he just played like shit. And every time PSG play on the international stage and he plays well, which he usually does. Uli Hoeneß gets ridiculed by German football fans for what he said, because Juan Bernat, he was scapegoated for whatever Bayern's failings were, but actually, that he wasn't the guy to blame.
Absolutely not, and it's unfortunate he's had this injury. So I'm hoping he's going to be able to come back in time. But still, what is his rhythm going to be like? Is he going to be match fit? Kurzawa has played the last few games while Bernat has been out. But Kurzawa is more of a attacking player, and given Jadon Sancho and all of your attacking players, I'm a little bit nervous about having Kurzawa there, and him getting forward and then leaving too much space behind, and it could just be a hot mess at the back for PSG with you guys attacking. It could get ugly really quick. So a little bit nervous about that, to be honest. Meunier, he's pretty solid. He's another player that likes to get forward, but he has a lot of experience. He's a Belgium international. He's played in huge matches before. I'm not as worried about him. A lot of fans don't really care for him. He's kind of a hot and cold type player, but we really don't have anyone that can play there. Colin Dagba is young and he's injured. Thilo Kehrer, another Bundesliga product, he can play the right back position. That's something that may be a surprise that
yeah,
Tuchel
but
goes
he's
with.
very error prone as far as I know.
Yeah, we saw that
on the big stage.
Yeah, we saw that against Manchester United, where he gifted them he did like a back pass and gave them their first goal, I believe it was. So, but maybe this is an opportunity for him to prove that he's learned from his mistakes and is ready to take on more responsibility. These are all decisions that Tuchel has to make and why he gets paid the big bucks. But our fullbacks are absolutely a weak spot, and you guys are uniquely positioned to take advantage of that, which makes me very nervous.
Yes, Dortmund often pick teams apart over the wings. So that's definitely why I asked about it.
Yeah.
So the big question obviously is for Dortmund fans, how is the relationship between Thomas Tuchel and the team, and obviously also the fans? How are they seeing him on the sidelines? Because we all know that he's a really great coach, but the relationship can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I think the fans, and I may have mentioned before, they're kind of split on him. Some fans think that he waits too long to make any in-game changes. Others think that he's, PSG haven't lost since like November 1st, I believe, against Dijon. So it's hard to argue with the results, but we all know that Ligue 1 isn't really up to PSG's caliber, and they can kind of steamroll through a lot of teams. So you're kind of left like, is he really good, or can he get out-coached by, Manchester United and losing the Champions League? I mean, everything is on the line for him right now. If he's able to convincingly win against Dortmund, I think a lot of the fans will get behind him and say, okay, he can do it. We just haven't seen him do it on the European stage, and I think that's why a lot of the fans are split on him right now.
Yeah, I will remind you, it's only the round of 16. So if he goes through Dortmund and then fails against the next team, fans will not be behind him.
Exactly. Well, it also depends on who you play in that round. If it's Barcelona and maybe you lose on away goals and you play really well, maybe he keeps his job. I mean, Leonardo has come out, the sporting director has come out and said that, the Champions League isn't like do or die. Obviously we want to win it, but we're building something here. So maybe if we show progress and we play really well, maybe he can keep his job. But I think he has to get past this round. You can't lose twice at PSG in the round of 16 and keep your job.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I would say it's probably hard to find a better coach for PSG at this particular moment right now.
Pep Guardiola. I mean, if he wants to leave Manchester City, I wrote a piece on the site about how he may want to leave if there's no Champions League football there. So, or yeah, Pochettino is a former.
There's a lot of ifs there. Yeah, I think Dortmund also looking at Pochettino. Maybe not. I don't know if they could afford him. That obviously wouldn't be a big problem for PSG. But I don't think Lucien Favre will necessarily finish. Well, he will finish the season, but then probably not continue. We'll see, but Pochettino is obviously a name that I can imagine at the sideline and at Dortmund too. Yeah. So from what I hear, the relationship isn't too bad. Obviously, if you follow the international headlines a little bit, there's been I don't know if you want to even call it a falling out between him and Mbappé.
Yeah.
But I think that's more drama that the press writes about for headlines.
It's a case where Mbappé is a insanely competitive player, and he wants to win the Golden Boot. He wants to win. I mean, he's talking about wanting to play in the Olympics and the Euros this summer. And this kid is 21 years old, and he wants to win everything. And when he was taken off, it was 5-0 against Montpellier. I mean, this was not a game in contention. And I believe he had already scored in that game. And he wanted more goals to track down Messi and, Lewandowski and everyone else in Europe who scores goals. And he gets so angry when you take him off. And you almost can't blame him. But then you also have to say, like, look, Tuchel's just taking you off for your own good. We don't want you to get injured because you're not going to win the Ballon d'Or by scoring a 6th goal against Montpellier. You're going to win it by beating Dortmund and Barcelona and Real Madrid in the Champions League. And you can't run yourself into the ground in meaningless games. So he just needs to understand that. But I think you're right. The press made a lot more of that than it should have been.
So I think the strengths of PSG are pretty obvious, especially the pace of Mbappé and overall the possession play. I assume will be great. The positional play of a Thomas Tuchel team usually is very good, and that makes them very hard to beat. That all being said, you've already indicated you are nervous about a couple of Dortmund players here and there and how Dortmund plays. So, what are PSG's weaknesses and who you scared of?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with who I'm scared of. Haaland. I mean, how many goals? 8 goals in 5 games, and he could score 20 in half a season, like you were saying. I mean, he's a player that if you're not scared of, what are you watching, really? Especially considering our defense. I mean, we have Thiago Silva, who's been in great form, and he's playing for a contract extension, which may not come, but he's 35 years old. And we've seen him both for Brazil and at PSG just, be overrun at times. So I worry about a young, motivated player like Haaland coming in and taking him on. It'll be an interesting matchup to see. Sancho is another one that I'm really worried about, just with our fullbacks. I don't think our fullbacks have the pace to keep up with him. I don't think they have the defensive mentality and his ability to not only score goals, but to also create. I'm really worried. Luckily, we did make a goalkeeper change in the summer. We brought in Keylor Navas. He's won 3 Champions League titles with Real Madrid. Hopefully, he can keep his backline organized. He knows what to do. He has the experience. I think that's going to be an unsung hero of ours if we're able to get through this game with a win. I think his organization at the back and making key saves is going to be really crucial for us.
Yeah, overall, what kind of match do you expect? Do you expect a shootout, since both teams are obviously top heavy, or do you think everyone will get it together because it's the Champions League and you need to worry about defense first?
Yeah, everyone's predicting a shootout, which probably means that it's going to be a 0-0 draw. But everything you look at tells you it's going to be an absolute shootout. I think Tuchel is going to maybe come out at first trying to be more possession based, pass it around, look for opportunities to counterattack when you guys are going forward, because you're going to have the yellow wall behind you. Your players are going to be motivated to score goals. And I think we're going to try to absorb some of that pressure, maybe get through the first 15, 20 minutes and then say, okay, let's start imposing our will. Let's try to get Mbappe into space. So I think it's going to be a little slow at first. People are going to be on Twitter like, what's going on here? And then I think you're going to start to see when the legs get a little tired, PSG figure out what's going on. I think then you're going to see the back and forth. And, in the Champions League, it just comes down to luck. Who could put the ball into the back of the net? Maybe VAR makes a decision. PSG has seen their fair share of red cards. Maybe someone could be sent off. I think this is going to be the most entertaining game of the round of 16, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that before we've seen actually any game.
Yeah.
So just on paper, I think you're right. So before we go, lastly, I will solicit a prediction.
Yeah, I thought about this. I'm going to go... Why not? We'll go 3-2 PSG. We'll get out of there with 3 away goals and all to play for at the Parc des Princes.
Well, not really. If it's 3-2 PSG at the away game for you, then I'm not very optimistic there that Dortmund have a big chance to come back. But Ed, thank you for coming on. Please tell our listeners if they want to inform themselves even more about this game on your side, how to get in touch with you or listen to your show and all that.
Yes, absolutely. So we're on social media, Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. PSG Talk, you can find us. Our podcast, PSG Talking, is an English podcast about all things PSG. To my knowledge, it's the only one. So you can go ahead and find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, awesome. Then thanks again and back to the show.